Okay, so this is a quick introduction to Leonardo da Vinci's The Mona Lisa, and in particular, we are going to talk a little bit about her significance as an art piece. So, the Mona Lisa is an oil painting on wood. It's much smaller than people usually think. It's 77 by 53 centimeters. It was painted in Florence between 1503 and 1506, though the artist made changes to it almost up to his death. Together with The Last Supper, the Mona Lisa is considered one of Da Vinci's masterpieces and has fascinated both critics and the public with its impenetrable smile and rarefied atmosphere of the landscape, identified as the countryside around Arezzo in Italy. So, what is it that makes the Mona Lisa so interesting? Well, first of all, no one's really sure of the identity of the woman in the portrait. The most likely theory, confirmed by Vasari, the very famous art historian and biographer, is that it is a lady named Lisa, the wife of the Florentine merchant Francesco Bartolomeo, hence the name. But some historians think that the real sponsor of the work was Lisa's lover, identified as Giuliano de' Medici. As we all know, the Medici's family was very important at this time. Uh, Giuliano kept the painting until 1515, then giving it back to Da Vinci when he married Filiberta de Savoia. 2 years later, Da Vinci moved to France, taking the painting with him. The Mona Lisa was made using Da Vinci's typical sfumato technique, causing the figure and the country seat to merge into one. So if I just go back slightly to the previous figure, the technique that we are talking about is this typical practice of the light and the dark and how she is almost blending into its landscape. Uh, Contributing to the mysticism of the Mona Lisa is, of course, that we are not fully sure of who she is and where she is and why she's smiling. Some people interpret the painting as a representative of Leonardo's philosophical concept of man and nature as being one, and this idea of having perfect harmony. There are some art historians that have been able to use more modern techniques such as x-rays and see that the painting is not, originally it was in a different format. For example, that she was covered with a veil, and that was traditionally worn by pregnant women, and this could explain perhaps her mysterious smile and the way that she places her hands deliberately across the belly. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about those hands in a later slide. There's also been a lot of talk about whether the Mona Lisa is in fact a self-portrait. If you go on and you search for articles about the Mona Lisa and Da Vinci's self-portrait, there come up some theories that perhaps Da Vinci was a cross-dresser. Now, that is a very specific genre of history of art that I will leave up to you to do your own reading if you so feel like it. Now, the details of Lisa's hands, her right hand resting on her left. This is a way of choosing this gesture rather than a wedding ring to depict Lisa as a virtuous woman and a faithful wife. Sigmund Freud, he thought in the early 20th century that this was in fact a depiction of Vasari's dead mother, Caterina. If you remember, I mentioned right at the beginning that Da Vinci's parents were in fact not married, and he had a very, very different relationship with his parents. So it's clear that Da Vinci was especially attached to the portrait. He took it with him from Amboise in France, where he moved there at the invitation of King Francis I. Following Da Vinci's death, the painting went missing, and researchers are still reconstructing its history, what happened when it was missing. Now, the most likely version is that Francis I bought the painting, but recent documents suggest that it returned to Italy through one of Leonardo's students and only returned to France at the end of the 18th century when it was placed on display in the Louvre. Now, why am I including this? This is interesting. When we are looking at a painting such as the Mona Lisa, there might be a lot of people saying that, well, the Mona Lisa is not even that beautiful. She's not even that big. It's not that impressive compared to a lot of our other arts. But the Mona Lisa has something that a lot of famous art pieces have, and that is that she has a symbolism of what she represents. For example, the Mona Lisa has been stolen a few times. Most famously was stolen by a peasant named Vincenzo Perugia, who wanted to return the painting to Italy for patriotic reasons, stolen from the Louvre in 1911. The work was found in Florence 2 years later. Now, this idea of having one of your most prized possession being stolen, going missing, we don't even know exactly the background of the painting, and on top of that, being in the center of a crime, makes this painting even more mysterious and scandalous. Right, now for those of you who are my students, I have attached in a document an article that you should write from the Met Museum, which talks about the theft of the Mona Lisa and the impact that it has. For those of you who are not my students of history of art, I still recommend that you give it a try and search for the article. That's it for next time.